Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic.
How do you feel about the fact that Trump has been in office for less than 3 months and has already taken 14 days off and spent $26 million of taxpayer money on golf? Not enough of these comments mention that a significant chunk of that money goes straight into his pockets because he literally owns the resort that's charging the government for using those facilities. That's the part that bothers me. This why we used to shame presidents into giving up any private businesses that could be seen as conflicts of interest. Everyone acts like it was so unfair that Carter was badgered into giving up his family's peanut farm, but it was absolutely 100% the right thing to do. And there should be actual laws forcing elected officials to give up conflicts of interest. We shouldn't continue to rely on the honor system in our government. There is no honor in American politics anymore, and there likely won't ever be again. Nobody is forcing these rich assholes to run for office. If they don't want to give up the businesses, then they don't have to run. Norms, values, morals don't matter anymore. In the second term, laws don't matter either. We are living in a fiction of a functional democracy. Nothing Trump does will shock me unless it's something positive with no ulterior motive. Sorry, we're all out of positive with no ulterior motive. Would you take a coincidentally good thing that he errantly takes credit for in a jerk-off, all caps Twitter rant? We also have Pepsi. I'll take the Pepsi. I'm far less concerned about him golfing than I am with him kicking off wars all across the globe with our former allies. Quite frankly, him wasting time golfing is time he isn't signing more fascist AOS. That's a good point. Make Trump golf again, has a nice ring to it. Trump can golf for 4 years, he is only a symptom. Something is really wrong with US society. Until that changes, 4 years later comes the next crazy idiot. He should take more days so he can stop messing things up. Any time he spends not fucking things up worse is worth every penny. Canadian here with a potentially stupid question. Are these days off, like his weekends? He takes these days off and spends tax money on his own resorts to do it, but there's no precedent in the US that the president gets weekends off. It's generally a 24/7 job. It's less about the schedule and more about the waste of public money to support it. He did the same thing in his last term after poking fun at Obama for golfing too much. Trump works 7 hours a week, 24 weeks per year. They are not truly days off as a previous person said, but they effectively are. They will always say he is making deals while golfing. Yeah, my first thought was that there are more than 14 weekend days in 3 months. The focus should be on him funneling millions in taxpayer dollars to his own business, not taking a bit more than half of the weekend days off. American here with no idea. Gotta say the ratio is right on, according to this https://trumpgolftrack.com. I think I'd call myself a social democrat. I don't want to attack Trump for dumb reasons though. He does plenty of fucked shit for us to focus on, like the secret police ICE kidnapping apprehending and deporting international students for condemning violence supporting terrorist organizations. From what I've heard, he's barely living at the White House and spends more time at Mar-a-Lago, and that entails travel and security detail which comes from taxpayer money. I saw one stat of how much taxpayers paid for him to be at the Super Bowl alone due to security checks and stuff, and it was a large sum of money, but I forget now exactly how much. Editor add, he also has been meeting with business execs for greater than $1 million a meeting at Mar-a-Lago during his time there in exchange for pushing their agenda. So not only is he not spending time actually devoted to US citizens, his actions have extreme conflict to what benefits the US people and only benefits those who will pay to meet with him. Gotcha, sounds like the theme here is grift the taxpayers to pad Trump-affiliated businesses. It's a minor issue compared to the rest of his shit. Honestly wish he'd take more days off. Maybe if he golfed every single day, the country would function better. I have no problem with any POTUS taking vacation days. The VP should be there in tow to give the 24/7 job a break sometimes. But when you campaign on reducing waste and love to criticize the last guy's use of vacation days, fuck you. Hypocrite. Pray should be allowed something like 50 vacation days a year max. No, that's actually kind of unfair. Presidency, excluding assassinations, is a stressful job that usually shaves a decade off of someone's life. Wartime presidents are in an absurd amount of stress, and even Franklin D. Roosevelt took nearly 1,000 days off. You can somewhat excuse the first Trump presidency on account of COVID being an extenuating circumstance. Not that he wasn't taking a lot of days off before that, but let's give that to him. This time, the stressful circumstance of his presidency is all of his making in attacking allied nations and starting a tariff war. It wasn't 9/11, it wasn't the crash of 2008, it wasn't COVID. He's doing this. FDR was in office longer than any other president, 12 years. He took about 330 days per term he served. Or, he earned a vacation day every 4 days he was in office. The vacation density Trump is accustomed to is unmatched. This is how I feel. I completely agree. By the same token, I also don't like Elon Musk criticizing Tim Waltz and calling him a jerk and being evil for expressing happiness at Tesla's falling stock price. I'd feel differently if Musk hadn't walked around that stage with a chainsaw and made the comment about government workers being the force that actually killed people in the Holocaust. Presidents are supposed to relinquish private business interests in order to avoid conflicts of interest, right? How is the situation with Elon Musk okay? I won't be surprised if we start seeing business advertising on the White House and Capitol building. I predict the monuments in Washington, D.C. are going to start looking like a MLB ballpark. Show Trump the money. I won't be surprised if we start seeing business advertising on the White House and Capitol building. Trump already turned the White House driveway into a Tesla showroom. At this point I'm just getting tired of every single day someone else posting, Trump did action XYZ. How do you feel about that? It's draining this sub of proper content. Proper content. Yeah, I need to learn more about sassy sexes. Women of Reddit, what's the sexiest sex you've ever sexed? And almost none of them are American. It's literally a way to astroturf the site more. All of these things are just headlines in other subs, but you can't post articles here, so all you get is, how do you feel about headline? Quote. Is there a comparison to Biden, Obama, Bush and Clinton? Be interesting to see. None of those presidents owned resorts or hotels and charged exorbitant rates to house his government detail. He makes money every time he golfs. I'm not defending him, just asking for a comparison. Bush quit golfing. He said he couldn't stand the thought of being seen out on the golf course while Americans were being killed overseas in the war. https://en.m.wiki/united_states_presidential_vacations. This has all the answers. A lot of these comments don't mention that a big portion of the money goes straight into his pocket, since he actually owns the resort that's charging the government for using those facilities. That's what bothers me. The people who should be upset won't be women shrugging. Not my site, but relevant to the discussion, https://trumpgolftrack.com/. Op is off a couple days. It's up to 19 days as of me commenting, approximately 27% of his current term. Don't forget the dollar trillions his tariff wars cost the economy. I can't wait for the GDP numbers and the inflation and unemployment numbers. Already set for a -3% in GDP just this quarter. Bush used 10-20 days of his 8 years. That's the most of any president as far as I know. Also, a president is a 24/7 job. Even on days off I'm sure they're all bombarded with some work-related stuff in their ear. I mean, I'm sure on his days off Putin is yelling at him for not helping him out more. Yeah, and Bush was heavily criticized for that. In fairness, he was a wartime president, but even FDR spent less time on vacation and he was responsible for World War II. For perspective, the last time the US had an uneventful presidency, by uneventful I mean no wars, no 2008 crash, no COVID or things of that nature, was Jimmy Carter's 79 days in 4 years. Obama had quite the stressful presidency and did 330 in 8 years. Sure, Trump had COVID the first time, but even before that he was doing quite a lot of vacation days and ended his 4 years with 380. The other point is the cost of these vacations. Trump's vacations are much more expensive than other presidents. Yeah, but there's a difference between Biden working from his house in Delaware, which is a commute from DC, and Trump vacationing in Florida playing 36 holes of golf. And taxpayers paying that place for security and everything else, which is owned by the president. How much have other presidents spent in previous terms taking time off? Seems he's actually undershooting his first term. I think the bigger problem here is him making money out of it. And it's a lot. Jimmy Carter took 79 days in 4 years. Trump always did love his vacations though. He complained about Obama's time off and did more vacation days in 4 years than Obama did in 8. Not by much, but still. Least surprising thing about him. We all knew this would happen. As did the uneducated that voted to pay for his golf. 14 days off in 3 months is less than most have taken off in the past 3 months. If you get 8 weekend days a month, then that means Trump went a whole month without taking any time off at all. Unless we aren't counting weekend days in that number. I was gonna say that I'm not bothered by someone having a break. It improves efficiency and prevents burnout. I mean, everything else this guy has going on is utter dogshit, but this isn't one of the hills I'm ready to die on. If anything, let him have more days off so he can stop fucking things up. Just a rapist felon doing rapist felon things. Another reason you shouldn't have elected him. I wish he'd play golf every day. He does less damage to my retirement fund there. Perhaps he's also WFH when he's out there. So 1 day off a week. Not co-signing Trump in the slightest, but why complain about 14 days off? That's literally just taking the weekends off like anybody else. The money thing is absolutely crazy work though. Okay, let's pretend this is only weekends. This implies that during peacetime, with nothing eventful happening, no wars, no economic crash, no COVID or things of that nature, Jimmy Carter did 79 days off in 4 years. When we compare data, we need to compare to comparables. Trump at this rate is looking like he's going to do at least 227 days off at this rate if his pace doesn't increase. Nearly 3 times the days off that Jimmy Carter took. Interestingly enough, Obama did something like 330 in 8 years, which Trump was vocally critical of, and then turned around and did 380 in 4 years. All of this is meaningless though, because of course weekends aren't included in this. Even though presidents are on call 24/7, the world as it is makes it so that weekends are kind of days off for them. People don't work on weekends, so the world and events mostly stop on weekends. There might be a thing punctually that you have to do, but even most of your government employees are off during the weekend and won't be there to do anything. Federal workers don't work 24/7 and government offices are closed during the weekends. There hasn't been any emergency for Trump to work through so far, so we can safely assume he took those weekends off. Anybody else? He's the president. They don't schedule world events around nights and weekends. I mean, the money thing is just the unfortunate part of being president. Doesn't matter if it's Trump, Biden, Obama, or Bush. Secret Service is gonna want all their protection. And that costs money. Only way to save that money would be to lock the president in the White House.